welcome to Bow Ties Are Sometimes Cool with myself, Ashley, and Ed. Say hello, Ed.
Hello, Ed.
Yeah. So this is our second podcast, and today is a special because it is going to be about Sir Roger Moore. Because Roger, I mean, I love Roger Moore. Who doesn't love Roger Moore, really? I mean, you've got to love someone who can pull off a safari suit like he did in Octopussy, and you know, exceptional. So yeah, we're going to talk about his films today. I know Roger is a favourite of you as well, Ed, isn't it?
My absolute favourite Bond, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about Roger, and we're just going to talk about his films in no particular order, really. We're just going to ramble on like we did on the last podcast, and we probably will on future ones. So that is today's. Yeah, Roger Moore. So, as he said at the beginning of his autobiography, I was born as an only child as my parents achieved perfection first time round. Or something like that. Yeah, so, you know, there's only one Roger. There's only one Roger. Oh, and by the way, just because you probably got that coughing, Ed will cough a lot during this recording, probably. This is why it was delayed. Because Ed decided, it'd be a good time to go and catch COVID. I'm still managed to dodge that bullet. But maybe I won't in the near future. So fingers crossed for me. Pray for me, guys.
We will, Ash. We will, definitely.
Good. So we'll start off with you. I know what the answer to this is, to be honest with you, but let's go with it. What is your favourite James Bond film of Roger's?
My favourite James Bond film of Roger's is actually my favourite James Bond film of all. And that is Roger's last outing, A View to a Kill. Now, I don't know what it was about 1985, but there seemed to be some cracking films in the cinema that I went to see quite a few times. I think I saw View to a Kill 3 or 4 times when the time was on, and Back to the Future was the same year. It was, again, I loved it so much, I went to see it again and again and again. But A View to a Kill has just got something. Roger is, late 50s, 58, 59?
57 in this one.
57, okay. Yeah. But there's something about the way he plays it. There's a sort of self-awareness in the way he plays it. Like in the beginning when he's doing all the stunts on the... Well, he's not doing the stunts, but James Bond is doing all the stunts in the snow. And then they play California Girls. And it's sort of... Roger's having fun with it. He's relaxed. It's his last great big bash. He's having a laugh with this. He knows it's silly. He's going to give us the ride of our lives in this film.
Definitely.
So you've got... The pre-credits, you've got the Duran Duran song, which is one of the favourite James Bond theme songs. And then you've got Christopher Walken as possibly my favourite Bond villain in Max Zorin. I don't know how he rates in the Bond world in favourite villains, but he's a great foil for Roger. It's almost in the scenes when they're together. They're trying to... Whereas some actors sort of bounce off each other and are very subtle, it goes up and up and up and up, as you can be more arch. Yeah. But they're both they're just having a whale of a time making it. Patrick Macnee's in it. I mean, if you don't know Patrick Macnee, John Steed from the Avengers as Sir Roger's sidekick, and even Big Ron from EastEnders is in it. And then
I forgot about him.
Yeah. And you've got,
he was winding the stool and stuff when he was on that, honestly.
But you've got all these sort of different elements. You've got a fabulous plot where Max Zorin wants to control the microchip production of the world not by buying the companies, that'd be too easy, by flooding Silicon Valley to destroy every other microchip production company. And why not? I'm sure that made sense in the board. I'm sure that made sense in the boardroom meeting. But you've got all this sort of quite sort of silly campness to it, and then right at the very, very end, you see how evil Zorin really, really is. He's just standing there massacring everyone and laughing as he does it. I mean, he's a child of genetic manipulation, isn't he, in World War II?
Yeah, I mean, his character is fantastic. I have to laugh. Well, it's not really funny, but just even when he dies and he's on, they're on the top of the bridge, and he can tell that he knows he's going to die because he's losing the grip, and what else would someone do in that scenario but laugh? So yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to give you a bit of bad news here, to be honest, Ed, because A View to a Kill is actually Roger's least favourite of his own films.
Personally?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
And I don't know why. Well, I think he didn't necessarily elaborate, but I think he's given lots of interviews where he sort of said he felt he was himself too old for it. I think he'd actually said about 2 or 3 films before that he wanted to finish, but Cubby kept on offering him the role and giving him some money. In fact, thinking about it, I'm just trying to think of inserts where they've done things where you could actually tell. So if you think about, For Your Eyes Only, is it For Your Eyes Only? Yeah, so it starts off, doesn't it, pre-title sequence where he visits the grave of Tracy Bond.
Yes.
Now, that scene was actually put in initially because at that stage the idea was that Roger Moore wasn't going to do it, it was going to be someone else, and that was a continuity scene to introduce the new Bond, because the new Bond would be standing at the grave.
Was it Roger standing at the grave in long shots and things, or had they just filmed that and then they were going to insert the new Bond in?
No, I do believe it was Roger that filmed it. I think that just the concept of that scene was basically put in to provide that continuity, but then they quite liked the scene anyway, so they kept it in and Roger did it. But yeah, there's been, I think he was only sort of contracted for the first 3 or 4 and then pretty much negotiated each one after that. There's a story where him and Cubby used to play backgammon all the time, and they used to sort of bet with each other, friendly bets. I don't think there's, when they weren't actually recording. And obviously, Roger said, I never talked about my contract with Cubby, but they were playing one game, and Cubby Broccoli leant over to him and he said, "You can go and tell your agent to in his head," because he was like, "No, you're not having that money, mate. You're not having that." So, but I think Roger did it anyway. So yeah, no, it's actually his favourite. I'm just trying to think about a little trivia about If You Get to a Kill. Cameos. Dolph Lundgren's in there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's where he met and then started dating Grace Jones, actually. What else? The Rolls Royce in the film is actually Cubby Broccoli's. Which he was a bit, I think Cubby Broccoli was pretty nervous about. Apparently when Patrick Whitney was driving it, Cubby Broccoli was sort of standing in the sidelines, almost like squinting, like one eye closed, because he was like, don't crash it.
So, I'm assuming it wasn't really shoved into the lake then?
No, they bought another one. Well, presumably with fairly decent bodywork. I mean, they can't have bought another Rolls Royce, that would have been just ridiculous, budget-wise. I mean, as in, like a Rolls Royce that was really decent. They must have just bought one that had okay bodywork and maybe sprayed it and what have you. So it was a Rolls Royce that went in, but not Cubby Broccoli's, yeah. So, but I didn't used to like it because I thought, Roger looked probably just a bit too old. But from an entertainment viewpoint, it's a cracking film. Like you say, the intro, although the little iceberg. I'm trying to think what you would call it now. Would you call it a boat or a little submarine or something like that? I don't know. But
sub, isn't it? Yeah,
sub,
I think.
But the actual thing was itself was really makeshift. In fact, the guy that was in it and driving it had to come up every couple of minutes for air because there was so much fumes in there in the actual sub itself. I think some of it was kind of done on a bit of a shoestring, really, but it is an absolutely cracking film.
It was almost at this stage the line between Roger Moore and James Bond had blurred a lot.
Yes, yeah.
You were going to see Roger Moore rather than James Bond.
But Roger. I mean, he didn't take things particularly seriously. John Glenn, who directed 5 of the films. He used to, when they did the timesheets and what have you, they used to have to factor in an extra half an hour into the day because they knew that all that would happen is that Roger would turn up, and for the first half an hour as he was just getting ready, so it would just be telling jokes to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of factored that into the day because so it's just hilarious. I do love that film. I love that film now. Not his best as far as I'm concerned, but yeah, probably put it in the top 3. For Roger. My personal favourite.
I mean,
go on.
I was about to go on to go from my favourite to your favourite.
Well, it can only be one really, which is Octopussy. Live and Let Die is a fantastic film. I do love Live and Let Die, but I think Octopussy for me just edges it in the sense of The comedy element as well. Plus, it's got everything. It's got exotic locations. The cast, I just love everyone in the cast. I love the fact that you've got the circus. You've got Roger there as a clown. Just everything about it. The Fabergé egg. I just love everything about it really. Henchman's quite good. Roger delivers some great lines, a bit like when he's playing backgammon, and he does that. Takes his dice off Kamal Khan. And shakes it, doesn't even look, and he goes, "Double six, fancy that," because it is loaded dice. He's just got some absolutely classic lines. There's a few things like random on there. What I'm thinking, after that scene actually, where they go off and then they're in the, what do they call them? Do they call them tuk-tuks? Yeah.
It, tuk-tuks.
And they're getting chased. And when Roger gets like stabbed in the chest or so you think, but it's.
But he's got all the money. He's running the casino. But
there's a scene in there where they're going along and they're being chased, and there's the tuk-tuks, they split because there's a cyclist that goes through them. There's a cyclist when you watch it you think, oh, that was done, but it wasn't. It was actually just some guy who cycled onto the set as they were doing the scene, and so the stunt drivers split to go around him, but they kept it in. And it's actually quite good, actually. So
having spent a lot of time in India when I was younger, that doesn't surprise me one little bit. It's just whatever that it's. So we'll just do it.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. What else? I love the scene where they're bidding for the egg. Where and he pretends to swap the egg, and yet I don't know how they ever thought that would work, because really when you watch it, I suppose maybe they were working on the basis that people watch it in the cinema and they won't watch it again. But, obviously when you watch it in VHS, there's no way that Roger Moore could have swapped that egg. In fact, the egg never goes out with a camera shot, really. You can hear it.
Is that at Sotheby's at the beginning of the auction?
Yeah. When he takes it and he sort of gets the egg and he puts it under the brochure, and in that split second, Roger will have turned into... David Blaine or David Copperfield have managed to switch the egg. But it's just little things like that. It's just funny.
But you just go with it because it's Roger Moore, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I went to see his audience with twice, and the second time I went to see it, I managed to get a front row seat, and he came out, and just everywhere went crazy. Had to stand ovation. And then he was stood there, and just because of the setup of the theatre, because the way they'd done the stage, I was literally about 6 foot away from him, and he went, "Hello," and I went, "Hi." I was like, literally, what do I say? This is Roger Moore. This is the man I wanted to be. This is the guy that I grew up pretending was James Bond. And yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that actually in a theatre before. I don't know whether I'll ever see it again. Just the response of somebody just walking on the stage. He's a legend.
I think he's from an era, though. He's from an era where people weren't just actors, they were stars. And you don't get that much anymore. You don't get stars who are also great raconteurs and, who outside their role can hold a stage. Because I suppose they were skilled in sort of being on stage when they were younger as well, rather than just going straight into films. They'd have done reps, so they know how to hold an audience. And they've got this back. They've lived lives, so they've got this huge sort of memory bank of anecdotes and stories that they can tell and probably embellish over time. You think back then you had the likes of Siraj, David Niven, Peter Ustinov. There's not many left these days who can do that. But he was, he's from an age, the dwindling age of golden age of Hollywood. He was an age where someone like that was. The likes of you and I bumping into Roger Moore in Tesco's would never happen. Stars were so far removed from us. They had that quality about them, that otherworldly quality, and that's gone really. I don't think you'd see, again, no disrespect to the man, but an audience with Daniel Craig getting that sort of reaction, because it doesn't work like that anymore.
No, absolutely not. But he I don't know, he did about an hour and then another, say, half an hour, after the break. And the stories he's got were just fantastic. I'm just trying to think of some. Well, there's one about the is it Hervé Virtual or something like that?
Villachairs, yeah.
Virtues, yeah. Knick-knack to me. That's why. It's actually, do you know it's actually when I do things like this that I realise I'm not really a James Bond expert. I'm just probably a bigger fan than most people. So anyway, Knick-knack, and he was like, well, apparently Knick-knack liked ladies. So they said Roger was when they were doing The Man with the Golden Gun. Roger had said to him, "Well, how many ladies have you dined?" Which I think was really another way of Roger's way of saying been with, really, which was and he'd said 45, and he said, and Roger said, "You can't count them all, though, can you?" It's like, "Yes, I can, because even some of them, when I pay them, won't do it." so yeah.
That's very good.
Yeah. So just little stories like that. But Roger, I mean, he obviously realised he wasn't. Well, I think he's underselling himself here, but I think he would say that he wasn't particularly much of an actor. Really, he didn't rate his own acting skills. He sort of said that I've heard him say many times that he was lucky that he was lucky enough to find roles where he could be himself, to a certain extent. But they tried, I think, in the first few films, certainly the Bond films, to make sure that he didn't raise his eyebrows. They didn't want him to be a Simon Templar again. Of course, give it about 3 or 4 films, that was what?
It was his trademark, wasn't it?
That went by the wayside. And his little double takes that he always did. It always used to do.
I love the double takes. I love the double takes he does. We're probably skipping back a few films now, but those scenes in, was it Spy Love You, when he comes out of the sea, holds the fish, and the little fella does the double take, and there's the one in Moonraker, and there's another one in Eyes Only. Yeah,
absolutely. And then the like when he's in, is it For Your Eyes? Yeah, it would have been For Your Eyes Only, when he's in the Citroen CV, which coincidentally was actually Roger's favourite Bond car. Bit bizarre, really, I suppose, but yeah, he liked it. And he does, that person pulls alongside him and just does like a double take, and it's just same with Octopussy, really. He just does them all over the place, and he's just like, that's Roger. But other ones that I like, I've grown fond of Moonraker. I didn't used to like Moonraker initially because I just thought, even for Bond, that was perhaps stretching it a bit too far in terms of just the concept.
Yeah, Moonraker. I love Moonraker, but I watched all the Bond films quite recently, and I do find it does drag a bit. It's a bit too long. I mean, it could have had maybe 20, 25 minutes cut out of it, and it wouldn't be that different. Yeah.
There was a woman who, I'm going to get her name wrong now. Nikki van der Sil. Now, who did she voice in Moonraker? She voiced someone in Moonraker. She was basically a voice artist, and a lot of the Bond films, some of the key characters were dubbed. So, quite a few lines of Solitaire in Live and Let Die were dubbed by her. Domino in Thunderball, she did Jill Masterson.
Gert Fröbe was dubbed, wasn't he?
Sorry?
Gert Fröbe was dubbed in Goldfinger.
Yeah, he was dubbed.
And also, Honey Rider.
Yeah, Ursula Andress was dubbed.
By Diana Coupland, was it?
Well, I think she might have shared it with this Nikki van der Sil, or however you say her name. I think they shared it. Sylvia Trench, who was like the Bond girl in the first one, in the casino.
Yes.
She was dubbed, I think, from memory. I mean, they're really good dubbing, though. You wouldn't know. But going back to Moonraker for a second, I just remembered a scene that I absolutely love. It is possibly one of my favourite Bond scenes of all time, is the cable cars. When Jaws comes on.
I like that one, yes.
Yeah.
Superb.
The actual, when Jaws bites the cable, that cable, which was really thick, was actually made of licorice, actually.
Was it?
Yeah. But I just love that one with Jaws. So Dr. Hilligan, they're there and they're approaching, and Roger says something along the lines of, I should have realised. And she goes, do you know him? And he goes, not socially. But his name's Jaws, he kills people. And then that one where he falls off and she goes, hang on, James. And he goes, the thought had occurred to me. you know, those scenes, they're just classic. Those are amazing one-liners. That has got to be one of my greatest scenes of all time. And then that's when obviously Jaws meets the love of his life. So he crashes, the cable car crashes. Most other people would die. Jaws just stand up, brush the dust off, and there's the love of his life. Moonraker is the only film that Jaws only has three words, is it, in the whole of the films? Here's to us.
It is. Yes.
Where he has his little champagne at the end. So
he's on the space station, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think Jaws was supposed to die initially in terms of the films. I can't remember. I won't comment on the books because I haven't really read them at all. But for the purposes of this podcast, I've read all of them. But yeah, he in an alternative version, he was going to have died in The Spy Who Loved Me. But I think when they showed it to test audiences, when Jaws is swimming at the end, in the sea, or towards the end. I think the audience was like a bit of a round of applause. They were like, "Oh, okay." So whilst he's a bad guy, they actually like him, and that's why Jaws got back into Moonraker. Also, the story goes. So
because you say about the books. You've not read the books. I can vaguely remember reading the books, probably in the 80s. And I remember Moonraker was not about space shuttle; it was about a missile defense system. So it's only probably very, very loosely based on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of creative license. There's a lot of scenes where they cut it. I won't pretend I know this because I've read the books, for example. But I think there's a scene. So I think the scene in License to Kill where Felix gets eaten by a shark.
Yes.
I think I'm pretty sure that was in Live and Let Die, the book. But they just took it out of that. So I think
it feels like it.
Yeah. And Live and Let Die, another absolute classic with J.W. Pepper in it.
J.W. Pepper.
You come as some kind of doomsday machine, boy.
J.W. Again. Yeah, I don't think he'd suited any other Bond, but he works with Roger.
No.
He's of the time. He's of the sort of the crazy sort of I can't remember the name of the film. Cannonball Run, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Phoebe and the Beans, silly sort of car chases that go on forever, sort of films, and he works in. The film's sort of Live and Let Die. It's 1 foot in the sort of the blaxploitation films to be made at the time, and 1 foot in the really silly big car chase convoy sort of films of the time, and it works.
It
really works.
It is a fantastic film. I'm just trying to think about just trying to think the rest of that scene. So you some kind of doomsday boy, and he goes, "Will you tell him?" And the cop says to JW, he goes, "This guy's he's a some kind of British agent." On whose side? Yeah. Classic lines. But I'm trying to think about Live and Let Die now. Little tidbits of facts. Well, I guess the guy who owned the crocodile farm was called Ross Kananga, which is where they took the name for the bad guy in it.
Oh, so Kananga wasn't the villain in the book then?
No, they took the name from the guy who actually owned the crocodile farm. He's actually the guy that did the stunt jumping across the crocodiles.
So definitely wasn't Roger then?
No, definitely wasn't Roger. Although Roger did suggest to him that it would be quite good for him to do it with crocodile shoes on, which he did. Although, to be fair, I think if you ever watch the outtakes and that, I think it took him 5 attempts to get it right. And on one of them, the crocodile just manages to snag his shoe and nearly take, and so they have to grapple with it. I don't think that was necessarily... Perhaps he caught a glimpse of the crocodile shoes and thought, I recognise that, he's a relative. It's the first time where actually Bond isn't in the pre-title sequence.
No, it's the funeral, isn't it? In the pre-titles, and then all the bits of the United Nations.
In fact, a lot of people sort of have criticised the film in the sense that actually for a Bond introduction it's quite underwhelming, because the first time you see Roger Moore is when he's in probably the only time you see James Bond's house. Oh no, you see it with Daniel Craig actually, but at that stage then kind of one of the only times you see his house, when M goes round And
Yes, he's with Barry Leon.
yeah. So
Barry Leon?
no, who was the Bond girl now? Well, no, it wasn't Barry Leon. She's later on. She was in. I think she was in For Your Eyes Only, wasn't she? But what I do know is obviously is that scene where Roger uses his watch to undo the zip on the girl's dress, and then obviously later on trying to get the boat when he's stuck on the island.
Yeah, when he's in the crocodiles, yeah.
That is Roger's favourite gadget, apparently. So yeah, although obviously, apparently the actual filming of it was quite different because obviously it was spoiling this for everyone that's listening. It wasn't magnetic, unbelievable. It didn't work. So they were there trying to pull the zip down on the dress with fishing wire. Yeah, with a fishing line. I know. I'm sorry. I don't know. Sorry, I know. Up until now, you thought everything was real, didn't you? No, sorry.
Well, I'm trying to think when I first saw Live and Let Die. It was in the cinema. Was it 73, 74?
73. Yeah, 73.
Okay, so it would have been on TV. 78, 79?
Yeah, possibly. Maybe later. Maybe a bit later.
Because it's the one from when I was a kid. That and Diamonds Are Forever are the ones I remember being on all the time. Sort of late 70s, early 80s at Christmas. But I don't remember two things about Live and Let Die from being a kid that I remember. First, you know when Rog he's in the hotel complex, he goes in to begin with, and there's the snake, and he's sort of putting his aftershave on, and he's got a cigar.
Oh, yeah.
And then the snake comes and he gets the deodorants.
Yeah.
First, I remember getting the telling off of a lifetime from my mother for doing that. With some deodorant to the match. I'm trying to be James Bond. You're not James Bond, Edward. But the second thing I remember, and I can remember it vividly for the first time I saw it. How did nobody realise that Mr. Big and Dr. Kananga was the same person because they look the same, even though he had all that makeup on?
Yeah. They didn't look that different.
My little probably 7-year-old brain thinking, well, does nobody realise?
Come on now, Ed. Don't take the mickey. I mean, I never knew that Clark Kent and Superman were the same person. So, come on now, Ed. Going back to the snakes, though, you know, because Roger, I don't think he wasn't a big fan of snakes, but Geoffrey Holder, Baron Samedi, absolutely hated snakes, like, ridiculously so, like petrified of them. And there's a scene, isn't there, towards the end of the film where he falls into a coffin full of snakes.
That's right.
Now those were actually real snakes, and they were a bit naughty really because they knew that Geoffrey Holder was scared of snakes. Anyway, there was the royal family. I don't think it was not our royal family, but a royal family of presumably from where, you know, from somewhere anyway. The point was, there was members of the royal family there that visited the set, and they knew that Geoffrey Holder was like the consummate professional, and that, you know, he wouldn't want to be seen to make a fuss in front of the royal family. So they decided that was the day that they would shoot the scene with the coffin and the snakes, because they knew that he would do it if it was in front of the royal family.
No stunt doubles.
No,
Nothing.
he did it, yeah, even though he absolutely petrified of snakes.
It's a corker of a film, is Live and Let Die. It really is. It's one of the best. So top 10, top 5 Bond films, perhaps.
I think I would put it, definitely in my top 5. I think Octopus is my number 1. Live and Let Die is in there. License to Kill, The Living Daylights. Absolutely, I didn't like them at the time, unfortunately. Sorry, Timothy Dalton, because Timothy Dalton wasn't Roger Moore. I'd grown up with Roger Moore, and you know, Roger was, and you couldn't really get poles apart. I mean, Timothy Dalton was just a totally different Bond. I didn't get it at the time, but now that I'm older and wiser, and I reflected back on it, Timothy Dalton is probably one of the best, if not the best Bond. No, I'd have to say second best. Roger's my favourite, just because on balance, when I think about his films, those are the ones that I definitely enjoy the most. But in terms of the gritty sort of portrayal, Timothy Dalton, top bloke. I'm just trying to think about Roger's films in general. You've got Live and Let Die, absolute classic. The Man with the Golden Gun, which I don't think didn't really pull
it's
too
fun
much.
Though, isn't it? It's a fun film.
Just
and it's memorable. This thing, you've got the stunts, the memorable stunts in that setting. Christopher Lee. It might be technically the best film, but it's a film you remember.
Christopher Lee, who is, he's gone. Ian Fleming's cousin, but there we are. Next fact. Christopher, great. Spy Who Loved Me, which was Roger's personal favourite, and it has got it. That is a good outing, really. It's the first time the Bond girl is very much on par with him, because it's Agent Triple X, Barbara Bach, and then you've got, Richard Kiel in there doing a cracking job. That's a great film. Little fact about that one, the scene towards the end where is it Stromberg?
Stromberg, Kurt Jurgens.
Yeah, Kurt Jurgens. I'm trying to think what his Stromberg's first name was, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. Carl Stromberg. That's
Stromberg.
The one. Basically the one where he shoots along, under the table. Roger's at the other end. The scene initially was that Roger was supposed to stand behind the chair, and the chair got, I think, metal in it as well to protect him. But they said, oh no, it'll be... I'm not sure if it was Roger or the director. There was a change on the day where it was decided that it might be more entertaining and more risky, like more of an element of suspense, or if Roger actually sat down on the chair. And when they fired the gun, Roger didn't quite get out in time, so actually I think that is Roger that's in the chair that dives away. And he ended up...
Wow.
He actually ended up getting slightly injured on that one. So... Anyway, of course, I'll double check that fact, and this could also be edited. We'll fact check that, but I'm 99% sure it is. If it isn't, we'll take it out. Although we'll probably keep it in, to be honest.
I always think, again, a bit of a Doctor Who analogy here, but For Your Eyes Only was almost like the anti-Moonraker and the anti-Spy Who Loved Me. It was tonally so completely different. And it might have worked with Dalton, it might work better with Connery, it might work with Craig, but it just did not suit Roger's Bond.
No.
There was something... It seemed to be Roger Moore with all the suaveness, all the Rogerness ironed out of him, and he was a quite bland, generic character in it.
Yeah, and there was a lot... Roger did want to... the scene where Roger kicks the Mercedes off the edge,
Yes.
Roger didn't want to do that scene. He was like, that's not my Bond. But anyway, obviously he didn't win the battle of that conversation, did he? But yeah, Roger didn't want to do that. So yeah, it is a bit different from his other ones, and it doesn't really feel... Yeah, you're right. It doesn't really feel like Roger. It could just have been any of them. But no, For Your Eyes Only, we could leave that one out.
No, we'll leave that one. If you had to dump the Roger Moore one,
if we had to.
Yeah.
So let's think about Roger. We've got Live and Let Die, classic. Man with the Golden Gun, up there.
Entertaining.
Spy Who Loved Me, great. Moonraker, grown to love it. For Your Eyes Only, could ditch it. No. Octopussy, my favourite. View to Kill.
View to Kill, my favourite.
Your favourite, and certainly, probably up there for me, really. It has. I've grown to love it. I thought at the time he just looked at maybe a tad old. I mean, you can't really get away from that. He was in his late 50s, but it has a lot of other attributes that makes that forgivable.
It just felt like a lap of honour. It felt like a lap of honour, and he was just doing it his way for one last time. I've got a theory to talk about now with how our generation views Roger. How our generation views Roger to how the youth of today view Roger, because, and I don't think it's like any sort of actor in any long running part. They go through phases of being popular and then not being flavour of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And Roger's films, unfortunately, like my son Xander got into Bond when No Time to Die came out, he was looking at them, and the Roger films and Roger himself are rated quite, unfortunately, and I can't quite fathom it, quite low by Bond fans online. And my thinking of this is, it's a reaction to the generation that we're in at the moment. because I think Daniel Craig has played Bond for so long. I mean, you're looking at...
tell me about it.
Was it 16 years? It's probably going to be best part 20 years he'll be the incumbent Bond by the time the next film comes out. That has then, the Daniel Craig way to play Bond has almost for a full generation of people become the default way that you play Bond.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So it was like anything else before that is like, what? Why? It's like when David Tennant was the Doctor. It's like the old series didn't get a look in because no, the Doctor is David Tennant, that's how you play the Doctor. So you've got this template now of this hard-edged, humorless, quite nasty character. I mean, fantastic actor, but Casino Royale, what we were saying earlier on about For Your Eyes Only not feeling like a Bond film, for all the plaudits Casino Royale gets, it is my absolute least favourite Bond film because it doesn't feel like a Bond film. It feels to me like a generic, hard-edged action thriller. I mean, Ava Green as Vesper, I think Ava Green is possibly the best acting performance I've seen from anyone in any Bond film. But it doesn't feel like James Bond, and sort of now the Daniel Craig way of making a Bond film has become the de facto way that a Bond film should be made. So anything that came before it, that they weren't doing it right then. This is how you do Bond.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping the next producers take a leaf out of possibly Kingsman's book, when they so a little bit more light, a little bit more tongue in cheek. You can never have another Roger, but someone who plays it a little bit more out there than gritty and serious.
Well, apparently, I think Pierce Brosnan tends to be quite popular, although maybe not so much with the critics. And the reason I say that as well is because there was an article which was when Prime got the Bond films, when they were looking at the statistics and the viewings and so on and so forth, Pierce Brosnan in that sense came out top. His films were the most watched.
That's interesting. But they are, apart from Die Another Day's, it's all right. But his 4 films are pretty decent films, and we'll come back to him in more depth on a later podcast. But it's interesting to see because he went through an unpopular period as well.
Yeah, I think. Well, I suppose, like you say, maybe for people who know Craig and only Craig, but I think otherwise, Pierce Brosnan was quite a happy medium, wasn't he? He was a bit more cutting. He was a bit grittier than Roger, but there was a lot of humour in there. So he was kind of like a nice little blend of things, really.
You know, the legacy, 7 films, 6 out of the 7, probably in my top 10 Bond films. You know, my absolute favourite James Bond. I mean, he's of that ilk of actor. You've got him, you've got Bill Shatner, you've got Brian Blessed, you've got Tom Baker, who they just, when they're on the screen, they dominate the screen. They are just... you see them. I've said it several times on this podcast already, but you see the film for Roger Moore as much as you see it for James Bond, because they're the pull as much as the Bond franchise, and I don't think we'll ever get that again. I don't think we'll ever get someone with that star quality. I'm sure we'll get great actors playing the role, but I don't think we'll ever see the like of Sir Rog with the sheer class and the sheer star quality. Yeah, no, absolutely.
He is, one of a kind. We'll certainly never see anyone who does 7 films anyway. Not the rate they produce the films these days. If somebody wanted to do 7 films now, they'd be an OAP. If they started now in their 30s, they'd still be an OAP. Yeah, so it's never going to happen. I think Roger, you can hold on to that one. Okay, Sean did do 7, but we'll discount Never Say Never Again for reasons that we've already discussed before.
Yeah, because it wasn't very good.
So that's probably about it for today then. Usually I would say goodbye and then Ed would say goodbye, but I've just, due to technical reasons, lost him. So goodbye from me, on behalf of me and Ed. Until next time, we have been Bow Ties Are Sometimes Cool. Please like and subscribe, and see you soon. Bye.